All right, we are live. I got Hensly Taveras here. We're going to play our Alumni Connections theme. I don't think he's heard this square, so we'll get the reactions with him on it. If you're tuning in live, we want to hear your comments, want to see your support. A. Philip Randolph in the house. Hensly, thanks for being with me here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, here we go. The Alumni Connections Project theme song here.
This is the Alumni Connections Project. We all know Randolph is better than the rest. Even when you progress, you still gotta rep. A. Philip Randolph Campus High School. But this is not a test, you should say it with your chest. Be proud of your origin, and if you are proud, support it then. Stronger together through unity, better together, let's build the community. Randolph isn't a school or a building, it's a legacy. It's not in your past, it's your identity. So show some pride. Alumni Connections is sponsored and brought to you by SBI, CCPI. SoundBusiness.org. SoundBusiness.org. The journey doesn't end with graduation and prom. The journey doesn't end with graduation and prom. The journey doesn't end with the journey doesn't end. This is the Alumni Connections Project. This is the Alumni Connections Project. A. Philip Randolph. Randolph. A. Philip Randolph. 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 Randolph.
Bring back some memories right there. Get the Randolph chant in there. There you go. There you go. So that's the theme song there. I'm still working on getting the proper video for the intro there, but thanks for being on here with me, Hensly. All right, so talk to us about what you're doing right now, and then we'll kind of work backwards. We'll get the whole Randolph story.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you're working with Disney streaming services. Talk to us a little bit about that. Mm-hmm. I was remarking on the fact that you have an amazing setup, so you could explain to the folks why you got an amazing setup over there. We got the branding on, got the hat you're all in.
Definitely, you got to represent.
Yeah, go ahead.
So right now I'm IT specialist for Disney streaming services. I work nights, so I'm pretty much the only one that works at night in terms of IT support. I tend to support all major releases for the Disney Plus platform. Everything stemming from the Disney Plus launch all the way till Raya. Yeah. Gets very complicated, but
well, that's really cool. So talk to me a little bit, just in terms of what the job entails. You're working at night, so what's a day in the life like for you right now?
Mm-hmm. So in the beginning, I of course take a look at my emails. We have a daily meeting just to make sure we're up to date with anything new, especially now that we're working remotely. And then I do have a few colleagues over in San Francisco, but they tend to stop working later in the night, and then I continue on till 2 a.m. Eastern. We have a bunch of people working everywhere, all over the world. So it's pretty cool to get calls from India and Australia. We support a lot of the vendors that pick up, when you call Disney Plus, their support, I take care of them just to make sure that they have the access they need to support the users. We also set up a lot of hardware, peripherals. If anybody has any issues with their tech, we could do remote sessions.
That's really cool. So it gives people an idea.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're going to go backwards in time and really give people, students that are going to Randolph right now, alumni, sort of sense of who Hensly is. We got lots of alumni from different years, so it gives a little context for the journey here. So talk to us. Where did you go to junior high, and how did Randolph first come onto the map for you?
All right. So let me take it way back. Start from the beginning.
You go.
Because I apparently was born with a Sharpie. Because as long as I can remember, in any young picture that I have a pen and paper. So I was always really good at drawing. In elementary school, Annie De La Cruz was the art teacher there, and she knew that I had some talent. So she knew my mom very well, and she would keep me after school so that I can try to do some art, but I didn't want to. I just wanted to go home and play video games. But that really started stemming, like, what else, how creative I can get with art. And one thing that a lot of people used to tell me is, oh, you're good at art, you should be an architect. It's like, yeah, I can be an architect. I can make money. But that was my first dream. That's essentially where I wanted to go. So I went to ISO 43. And I remember vaguely about applying to high schools, but I do remember, I think Randolph was probably my third choice. My first choice was LaGuardia, because, of course, everybody knows their art program. I did go for the interview for that one. My second one, I don't remember, but I did hear they also had an interview process. I didn't go, so I didn't get it. But Randolph did have an art program. Funny enough, I didn't take an art class at Randolph. But
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I don't think in interviewing alumni from Randolph, I know that the art teacher, Mr. Biles, which I'm sure was around as you were going through school, right? I know a lot of people talk about Mr. Biles, but I don't recall many people. I mean, there's the engineering program, but a lot of people don't talk about visual engineering. Really, it's more mechanical and that kind of thing. So very interesting that you ended up on that journey, even though that was your direction, right?
Right. Eventually, it would be my main direction. But so during Randolph, that's when I really started thinking what I really wanted to do. Because in junior high school, when I was applying for high school, I was very lazy at applying, so I only applied to like a handful. And then the guidance counselors brought me aside and they're like, you need to apply to more. Come on. So I did. In Randolph, it was the same process with you guys. I didn't want to apply to any SUNY schools, just for the fact that if I did get into them, I would feel obligated to go. And I was brought up very poor. My mom's a home attendant. My dad works in a deli. I have an older brother and a younger sister. So financially, we're very tight. And I mean, my dream school was MIT. I would have loved to have gone to MIT. But financially speaking, I didn't want to be burdened by a lot of that.
So you got exposed. Where were you living as you were getting into Randolph?
Washington Heights, NYPD.
All right. So you were local in the area, right? And then you got into Randolph. And what was those first couple of years like? And what was your first impression of Randolph as you were getting into the building?
It felt very old. It felt like a castle or like a church. But I do remember one of my first friends, Rashid, during science class. Freshman, junior year, sophomore year, I don't remember too much. I do remember being into like extracurricular activities like wrestling, which I got injured literally my first day of practice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because we were doing like fireman carries and I had to carry Angel. Angel was like 260 and I was like 240. Then in gym, I would get injured again because my knees, we were doing track, we did volleyball, and I kept getting injured. I tried baseball, but I was always a very thick person. The main sport that I did stick to was bowling. That was fun. That was an experience.
Yeah. So, this is one of those things that I talk about A. Philip Randolph. And for folks that, went to a school, I went to this high school in the city, and the resources just weren't there like for A. Philip Randolph. There was no bowling team. There was no baseball team. We did have a basketball team. That was about it. That was like the, you want to do a sport, there's a basketball. There might have been something else that I wasn't aware of as a boy going to high school and just being into what I was into. But really, there was not a lot of different there's no football equipment, lacrosse stuff. And it was interesting being in Randolph for so many years. You got different sports. You got folks going swim team down the street, right? YMCA. Really interesting. So fantastic that you finally found your sport in bowling. Very cool.
Yeah. And Ernesto, actually, my cousin, was the captain of the swim team, and he always tried to get me into it. But since I was always very fat, I was very self-conscious, so I didn't want to take off my shirt and swim. Not in front of people. I wouldn't
call yourself fat, but all right.
But one of the things that I wish I did join was the robotics team. I did go the first day, and I remember we didn't do anything, so I was just like, it's not for me. But thinking back at it, I should have definitely stuck to it.
You had a few of those kind of instances, like, I'm going to give this one shot, and if it doesn't work out, I'm not in.
I'm a busy guy.
All right, so talk to us. You're getting into junior, senior year, because you kind of started down that path already with talking about not wanting to apply to different things. Eventually, you end up going to City University of New York, and then City College, and there's a stint at John Jay, which I'm sure you're going to talk to us about. But he graduated in 2010, And so what was that, trying to figure out why'd you pick, why did you end up on City College? What was the decision process there?
Yeah, so I was a very smart student. I wasn't the type of student to pick up a book, but I was a sponge. I would just absorb everything. So when it was my turn to apply, I didn't apply to any SUNY schools or any Ivy League schools, but I did apply to CUNY. And I pretty much got accepted into all the colleges that I applied to. But the reason why I chose City College was because of the Grove School of Engineering, which in terms of all the CUNY schools is probably the most prestigious. They only accept about 350 students at a time, and only 24 graduate. So it's a hard program to get into. And the fact that I wasn't very book savvy made it very difficult in retrospect.
And what was that program? Say it one more time.
Book savvy?
No, the program.
Grove School of Engineering.
So that was part of SUNY?
It's part of CUNY, actually. It's part of the
CUNY, okay.
City College. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So say, I'm sorry, and maybe I haven't had enough coffee at this point, but say the name of the program, because this is interesting stuff, and this might be helpful to somebody else. Say the name of the program one more time.
Yeah, it's the Grove School of Engineering.
Oh, Grove School. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Grove School of Engineering, and that, because I also know City College also has, I think, Sophie Davis Medical School. So City College itself, it's a big school, but there's some of these intricate little schools within the school, these programs that are very rigorous and pretty amazing to be a part of.
Yeah. Sophie Davis is very hard to get into.
Yeah.
From what I've heard. Yeah.
So did you get into the Groves?
Yeah. So I did get into Grove School of Engineering. At that point, I did have a little fascination with math, but just for the students listening to this, make sure you really understand the career you're going to get into. Because when I chose computer engineering, I didn't realize that I had to do a lot of electrical engineering work. It's computer engineering is electrical engineering and computer science. And the hardest classes that I had to take were all electrical engineering.
So when you were getting into the program, now you what other schools did you apply to? Why did you settle on the Grove School within City College?
Well, for one thing, location. I lived in 177 in Amsterdam, so it was
and you did not want to go away, like we were telling a lot of students in SBI, like go away, go experience something different. You didn't want to go away.
That's exactly what you guys told me. I didn't want to go away just financially. I didn't want to get burdened. I didn't want to burden my parents. So my brother has his pilot's license, and my mom had to take out a loan for him. So just thinking about.
So he's older. So how many siblings do you have?
I have an older brother who's 3 years older than I, and a baby sister who's 10 years younger than I.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so the older brother was going to pilot school?
Yeah. He was in Morristown Airport. He used to work there, and that's where he got his private pilot's license.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So, there's so many concerns, right? as you're going on this. I'll ask this question later, and we'll put a pin on it now, but I'm kind of interested to sort of see after we get through the story, like, if you would have gone back and made some different decisions. I started hearing that a little bit with the picking the electrical engineering piece or the School of Engineering versus maybe something else that wouldn't have required these very difficult electrical engineering classes, right? So you get into the Grove School. There's a long process for you, right? You're going to school, and why is this a long process? Why is it taking a long time to get through this?
Well, in terms of applying to school, or
because you were in school in a while, and I think you also joined, because I was looking at LinkedIn, you also joined the auxiliary part of the
auxiliary police officer,
NYPD. So what was like the decision-making process behind all that?
So when I became an auxiliary police officer, that was because my brother was an auxiliary police officer, and the experience that he had and the doors that it opened was actually absolutely amazing. So I really wanted to give it a try. I did have a slight passion for being a police officer when I was young, because our dinner ritual was cops, and it was my dad, my brother, and I. Always fascinated with cops. But eventually my brother was the one that became the police officer. But because I became an auxiliary police officer, that experience taught me a lot, especially about, how society treats police officers. Even if you're a volunteer, they don't see the patch that says auxiliary. They just see the uniform. And if you're wearing blue, you're a cop.
That's pretty cool. And so did the pilots, like, does your brother also use the pilot's license, or is that just kind of something that, no, all right. Yeah. So you guys got some of those similar things. I go for this education, not really use it, but I'm sure it's pretty cool. And does he ever fly at all now?
No, he's obsessed with flying.
Okay.
Since as long as I can remember, when we had our first computer, we would fight because he would want to play Flight Simulator. So it goes way back. But no, he unfortunately he didn't finish, like, because to become a commercial pilot, it's very difficult because you have to do like your instrumental rating, your multi-engine, and then you have to fly like 10,000 hours.
And,
so
by the way, there's an alumni, Brian Lee. Do you know who Brian Lee is?
No.
All right, Brian Lee is a pilot. I want to say forgive me if I get this wrong, but I think he's a pilot for United. I'll look it up here. Mm-hmm. But I'll connect you too, and maybe your brother might want to connect with him. He's an alumni who is a pilot, commercial pilot, going through the whole process. Pretty cool. I think for him, who he is a pilot. I know he's got talents playing the piano and all that jazz too. Nice. For him, at this point, it's a job. I was like, well, that's a job with a nice view, though, right? As you're
a scary view, but a nice view for
sure. So talk to me a little bit more about the experience going to college, being in the auxiliary police, right? Because that was a major part of your experience. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. So thankfully, for the training for the auxiliary police department, it's every Wednesday for, I think it was like 6 months we had training. And the first half was books, learning the law, learning what it takes to be an auxiliary police officer. And during that, like, they explain to you that you're not a cop. You're essentially there to provide omnipresence, which is to prevent crime and to report any crimes that might be in progress, but you're not supposed to take action. And you'll see time and time again that there are auxiliary police officers that do take action, and unfortunately, a lot of them end up losing their lives. So it is a very dangerous thing to do. Very, very valuable for sure. But definitely be aware if you want to do that. It's very dangerous, but it's very, very giving. So because of that, I was able to get a job with the North Face as a sales associate, because as soon as I went in, that was the first thing they saw. And like, oh, you're a cop. And the only reason I didn't get the job on the spot was because the second manager had to go pick up a cat. So I had to come back the second day, and that's when they gave me the job. But going to school and working, thankfully, the auxiliary program, you only have to do like 12 hours a month. So it wasn't very burdening in my time. Going to the North Face, where I did work a lot more, that was a little hard, because when you're in college, there's so much things you want to do. But when you're in such a rigorous program like the Grove School of Engineering, you have to dedicate a lot of time to bucks, which it's something that I never grew up doing, just because I was always a sponge. I never picked up a textbook and read it. So that in terms was very difficult for me. It was a complete 180 for me, essentially.
Yeah. And I mean, you felt pressure. Obviously, you're living at home, right? Just so that you could avoid that, but you're feeling pressure to work and try to be in this program at the same time, right?
Yeah, definitely a lot of pressure.
And then on top of that, you're also doing this auxiliary police thing.
Yeah. The auxiliary thing I did for 2 years. I didn't do it any more than that, but
okay.
The North Face, I think I was there for 2 or 3 years, but that was really fun, because one thing that I learned during my time in college is that I was very good at attention to detail. So for the North Face, when they're training you, they train you on other fabrics and the technology that goes on behind them, like Gore-Tex, high vent, dry vent, which is the renaming of it, the difference between them. And then you would get these people who, some of them might not be very tech savvy. So you can just say, oh, this is the warmest thing we have, Himalayan parka. It's like $600 coat. But for some, they'll be like, all right, why should I get this versus this? And then you would have to explain that to them. In learning that, I realized that one of the reasons why I did so well in school, besides being a sponge, is that a lot of people would tend to cheat off of me. So I would have to explain a lot of the things. And that's something I never did in college, which is I never got into group studies, and seeing how important that is now. is definitely an interesting way to see it.
So if you were going back to this kind of thing of if you were to kind of do it all over again, would you approach it a lot differently from the way that you approached it from before?
There would be a lot of things that would change, but if I had to go back and do it, I wouldn't change a thing just because of where I am today.
Yeah,
that butterfly effect is a little too scary for me.
So talk to me. So you're going through. Talk to us about the progression as you're kind of going through. You're working in the North Face. You're working towards your degree. How long did it take you to get from freshman year to getting the degree?
So I never finished my degree.
Okay.
So there were two classes that really, really messed me up. One of them was statistics. Statistics for engineers and scientists in Grove School of Engineering is one of the hardest classes in all the program. Only like 10% pass that class or something like that. It's very small. The majority of people end up dropping the class. There's only one teacher who teaches it, and he's an electrical engineer with a very, very thick Russian accent. It's like molasses. So it's on top of it being very hard to understand him, the process and how fast you go from just your basic functions to integrals and Z transforms, and then learning how to use the different charts. I would go in very confidently to them, but I would be like, oh yeah, this is definitely the answer. And then it would go see it, and then it would just be something that was way easier. I think I just thought too far out the box. So that was one. The second one was linear analysis. And I was looking for my book. I couldn't find it, but for that class, oh man, I did pass the first one. I had to take linear analysis too, but it's hard. There's questions that'll take you like 2 or 3 sheets to solve, and that class I just couldn't get past. So eventually I did get into probation, and then I left the program. But at that time, I had or have around 134 credits, which is enough to get a bachelor's, enough to get an associate's.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I never got the degree.
So are you going to go back and finish it off at some point?
Yeah. So that's why I went to John Jay, was to test their IT program. I went, and then COVID happened, so I put that on hold for now. But I do want to go back to the Grove School of Engineering if I can, just to give them one more shot, just because I'm not a quitter. But
and speaking as somebody who dropped out of high school, I did all 4 years and didn't finish because I had some projects to do, and then I got my GED, and then I went to college but didn't finish that either. I'm 42. I'm looking at some point here to go back and get my degree. It's never too late, right? So
exactly,
go back to it. Good luck on me transferring my credits. I got to find that right situation where they accept some of this life experience and all that. But yeah, I want to get my degree one day. And I think one of those things, because I'd love to go down the road, and I enjoy teaching. I like, obviously, I've been involved with SBI for a long time. Being able to go and actually get paid or at least be official in a capacity as a teacher would be a nice thing. So you got to get those paper degrees and all that stuff. So talk to us about the transition. So you're kind of timing out of this, getting frustrated with this program. You're working in North Face. What's the next step professionally for you?
So at this point, I was thinking about exactly what I needed to do to continue into my career path. And the most frustrating thing you're going to realize is that you need experience for an entry-level position. And that's just frustrating. So I did apply to a few positions, and fortunately there was one company that was going to give me a chance. That was Neway Fertility. I went in for the interview, and when I went at the time, I was making like $10 or $11 an hour at the North Face. So I was like, if I can make $13 or $15 an hour to get the experience that I need, that's invaluable. Because that is what you need to get into this position. Experience is everything. So I went to the interview. I met up with Daruska Moskovich, which is my director, and Matt Ferret. And they were very, very kind. And I told them I didn't have experience in the field, but I've always been very techie. I can fix anything you need me to, just because I can figure it out, just because I've done it for so long, but not in a professional environment, which is what experience they need. So I did get the position, especially because they were looking for somebody who they don't want to pay very much for such a professional position, right? You got to make yourself very appealing when you're trying to enter this field. So I did get the position. I worked with Derek and Paul, who was a Korean IT specialist. He eventually left a few months later, so it was just Derek and myself.
What does Neway do?
Neway Fertility is a fertility clinic.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah,
so I just saw it on the LinkedIn Neway. All right, so Neway Fertility Clinic. So they got a very technical operation going on over there.
Yeah. So if I'm sure nobody knows what Neway Fertility is, but if you're Korean, you probably know what Maria Fertility is, because Maria Fertility is owned by a doctor called Hu Jong Lim, and he has like 9 hospitals all over the world. It's a huge practice. And Neway Fertility is their American branch, but it's a very small boutique clinic.
And what were you doing there? Because I know from like the LinkedIn piece, assisting patients, employees, and executive management with all troubleshooting cases. But what a day in the life look like at the clinic?
Mm-hmm. So I would go upstairs. Derek and I would talk about what needs to get done today. I would have like these little projects that I had to do at first. So the first thing that I had to learn was how to make a CAD cable, an Ethernet cable, because there's 2 ways to do it. There's an A and a B, which is just having 2 of the cables swapped. But I had to learn how to crimp cables together, how to run them. So one of the thing about this practice is that it was all Mac based, and I've never had an experience with a Mac. I was always a Windows person. So I had to learn that from scratch as well. They used a software called Mac Practice, but it was a very generic software that's just built for general practice. They didn't have things that were very specific to fertility, which is what the doctors really much wanted to have, was something with a built-in flow sheet, which is where they can monitor a patient's flow during their ovulation and stuff like that. So it was a lot of learning. One thing that I learned about myself during this time is I'm very good at learning new software, because I would just play around with the software and I would just know where to go, what to do. And in turn, when I would go downstairs and help out Dr. Luke or Dr. Najat especially, he would always ask why. He's that doctor that always wanted to know what you were doing, why were you doing this, which was good practice for me, because in telling someone what I'm doing, it solidifies it inside of me.
It's one thing to know it; it's another thing to teach it, right?
Exactly.
Of it, and if anybody's a teacher in the audience, right? If you really want to know something, go and teach it, because then you realize how much you don't know. As soon as somebody says why, or why is that, or and what happened over here, like, oh, I either know it or I got to go do some research.
Yeah. If you can't explain it to somebody, you don't know it.
Yeah, it's a tough place to be, especially as a teacher, and then you're in that position. Yeah, let me get back to you. I'll tell you tomorrow.
Especially for a new hire who's never been in a professional environment like that, having to deal with doctors that are very, very good in their field. It can be very intimidating.
Why, doctor? Because Derek, that's what he told me.
It's like computers. I don't know. They just act funny.
So you did this for a while, and this is at 123 West 79th Street, right? And you're doing that. What eventually took you over to, and what was it? You said the company before we jumped on, but what was the company before it was with Disney?
BAMTech Media was the name of Disney.
That's how you joined, right? With BAMTech Media. So how did BAMTech Media get into the picture?
Okay, so before we get into that, I want to make a point that in a job environment, I know there's a lot of people that are very hesitant to getting more experience, or not more experience, but more responsibility without more pay. And I think especially for an entry-level person who's trying to learn, I think you should always, no matter what they're trying to make you do, always do it, because you're going to learn so much. So in doing so, I was very valuable to Derek because there's a lot of things that I knew and I just know how to do that he just didn't, just because he was pretty much on another field from what we were doing. Like, I had to help out everybody in the clinic. He was just setting things up, like trying to get hardware, make sure the servers are okay, setting up AD accounts. But I was the face of the IT department. I would go everywhere. Doctors needed me, I would go there. The president of the company needed me, I would go there. To the point where she sat me in front of her office because I was always so helpful. And even though they wanted me to do things like they were building a new office in Connecticut, I did architecture work because I know Photoshop. So I didn't say no to that. I was like, yeah, why not? That's more experience for me. So one of the things that made me leave was it was getting to a point where you start to feel unappreciated, even though for you it's very gratifying.
It was interesting as you were saying that, because I was saying, yes, there's two sides to that coin. One, I think you say yes, right? So that you can learn and so you can build up. And so, you're gaining experience, the experience that people will pay more for. But the flip side of that is when you're doing more and you're not necessarily getting paid more, you're doing the ask more, you're maybe staying more hours, you're seeing that, more and more is asked of you, and the pay doesn't go up, that can turn into a different kind of situation.
Yeah. So they eventually give me a raise, a very substantial raise at that. But during that, the practice manager was such a harsh person. Like it just makes you not want to come into work, even though your colleagues, you absolutely love them. Like I would be like the psychiatrist in the office. I would just go and it would be like a bar. People just want to talk to me about their problems. So eventually
it's funny how much that, and you think about, I could get paid less. If I like where I am, I'd be more inclined to stay, but you make it impossible for me. You could pay me whatever you want to pay. And if I don't love going in, I don't want to be there, right?
Exactly.
It's a big deal, yeah.
Exactly. But the president, my director, even Dr. Lim, the owner of the company, they all treated me very well. Very nice people, very smart. It would always be an honor because when he would come from Korea, he would always have a meeting with the new hires and he would have a presentation about fertility. I thought it was cute because a lot of them are fertility specialists, but he wanted to present his own thing because he was one of the first doctors to complete an IVF, one of the first Asian doctors to complete an IVF. So for me, it was an honor to help him out all the time.
That's pretty cool.
With that experience, I did learn how to speak to people in such positions like VPs and stuff like that, executives. So when I was applying, I was applying like wildfire. I had two main interviews. So when I was very young, one of my cousins, Ernesto Jimenez, he works for the New York Presbyterian Hospital 168 as an IT specialist. He was the one who introduced me to computers. He got me my first compact. He taught me how to change RAM. When I learned how to change RAM and I saw the insides of a computer, I thought it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I was like, God, it looks like a city. That's so cool. So that's how I got my start in technology. So one of the jobs that I wanted to get was New York Presbyterian because that's where my cousin worked. It's New York Presbyterian. But at the same time, working in a medical field is very hard. Just because there's a lot of things you need to take into consideration. Like every time I go into a clinic, I see HIPAA violations everywhere. It makes me cringe so hard. But not a lot of people know what a HIPAA violation is. But
so for everybody that's curious, which if you filled out like 20 forms at the doctor's office, most of them were probably around some variation of privacy policy and keeping it all together. Which it's like you say, it's tough knowing that they're supposed to be keeping things secret and doing things a certain way, and it's not really the way that it ends up being.
Especially for HIPAA, it's like if you go to a fertility clinic and you see a name of a person, that's already a violation because this person is coming to this clinic for a fertility issue, and that's the basic principle is that you cannot figure out a person's condition with any personal health information, which can go from their name to whatever condition they have. So if you go to a clinic and you see a patient's name, that's a HIPAA violation right there.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. And a lot of doctors' offices just have sign-up sheets right there in the beginning. So right away, that it's interesting. But, they don't want to share your medical data with you because it could be a HIPAA.
You got to be careful with me.
That's complicated, right? So you started getting to this place where you were like, all right, I want to go apply some places. You're looking at these different places. What got you to what was this? Say the name of it again. Apologize.
BAMTech Media.
BAMTech Media.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I learned from you guys and from my experience applying to junior high school is that I have a tendency to say no to myself when I'm applying to things. One thing that I learned when I was working for the North Face is there was somebody from MIT, from their financial office, who went there, and I was talking to him. For some reason, I figured out he worked for MIT. He told me that, yeah, especially for minorities, it's so easy to get a full ride. That made me like, damn, what would have happened if I really applied to MIT? I did apply to a few like Northeastern University, but not a lot. I really didn't want to go to any Ivy Leagues or.
Well, we would have pushed. I don't know what the conversation. I don't remember the conversation that, if you were talking with Thompson at the time, but I know he would have pushed you and said, "Don't go to school in the city. Go outside."
Yeah, definitely. You guys pushed it for that. Yeah,
private school. They got the money to, pay for you. But we battle a lot of this stuff, especially around. I mean, we battle hard poverty issues where, people really like, I'm afraid to go away to school because, they need help paying the rent. We deal with the immigrant situation where the mother father just doesn't want them to go far away from home, period. That's a lot of mother fathers, not just immigrants, but particularly with some cultures. We deal with the piece of the, being scared to go away and all that. And then you're dealing with, folks that, don't meet the guidelines for the FAFSA to be a zero. The mother or father makes a little bit too much money, and so the contribution amount is a little bit more than zero. Now suddenly, you're not going to get a free ride to a SUNY school, for example, because that's not the way the FAFSA dictates. So all those complicated issues with getting somebody to go away, but a lot of these private schools, they have endowments. You got the grades. You got some of these, you're a part of sport or this, that, the other. You got some accolades, some different things, really good grades, whatever the case may be, great SAT score, and suddenly you're in the door with potentially a full ride or at least a big grant or big money towards. I think, I've talked to and doing these interviews with Alumni Connections. Some of these stories work out really well. And then some of these things, you're looking at, well, I went to a school and only 3 people got into this program. Maybe I shouldn't apply to that program because it was going to be too difficult to really do the for like a master's degree, right? They got the 3-2 thing and really wasn't that feasible, which was news to me. And for Thompson and I, you're pushing students to different schools, but you don't know every program. You don't know, what all the statistics are. I know a lot of our advice when we talk about City College, not so for the Sophie Davis program, not so for the Graves program, right? But Groves program. But, if you're going to City College just straight, I'm applying to City College, not a part of some special program, we'd be like, wait a minute. Is there someplace else that you can go? Because the statistics are lined up against you, right? Just in terms of, go back to that statistics course in the growth school. But
migraine.
but the statistics, the numbers are just really against you. Not to say that you can't go to City College and get a great education. Some of the folks that have graduated from City College have gone on and done amazing things, but you're just trying to set kids up for the best situation. I love what the advice that you're talking about and, opening yourself up, looking for those management opportunities. In this world, go back to my father's day when he was coming up, you stay at the same company, but now that's how it works. You get this experience over here, you jump up a couple of positions in terms of experience, and you go sell that to the next company and you get your payday. And hopefully you've done your homework and checked out the culture and made sure it was a good fit so that you actually enjoy showing up at work as well.
Exactly.
So talk to us, how did you get into this whole BAMTech situation?
So when I was applying, I ran into I think it was like in Monster or something like that. It said BAMTech Media. And I was like, yeah, let me click on that. And then I see there's a Disney banner on it. I was like, oh, maybe it's a Disney affiliate. It might not be TWDC mainly, but hey, why not? So I forced myself to apply just because I was still intimidated. But I was like, I can't say no to myself. I have to let them say no to me. So I did apply. Andrea Campbell called me up, said, hey, we want to interview you for this position. Then I went in, interviewed with Greg Gold, my current manager. And then a few later, they called me up and asked me, "Hey, we're still discussing this. Have you had an interview with anybody else?" And I was like, "Yeah, I had one with New York Presbyterian. I'm still waiting on them as well." Like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll call you back." Then literally a few hours later, they called me up with my offer letter.
And I love that piece of it too. It's so good to say, "Yep, I got something else on my table," because that makes a big difference. Even when we were in the college application process, "Yep, I'm applying over here. I'm applying over here." It puts a little heat on the table if you were to answer that same question with, "No, this is the only thing." All right, we'll get back.
They have time. They have time.
Forces the hand a little bit. So that's great. And so when you started with the company, what was your initial impression? How has that turned out?
Yeah. So when I first started, they asked me what time do I want to work, because they were looking for a daytime person and a nighttime person. I was like, it might be fun to work nights. Why not? Let's give it a try. And I told him, he's like, "Really? Nobody would pick that." But I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. So it's a little intimidating, because when I first started, they wanted me to do a week at least for a day shift, so I can understand everything that goes on. But in doing so, of course, you have to help out a lot of these VPs a lot of them are very nice, very, very nice. But there's a lot of people who you might be a little afraid of, just because their position, like Michael Paul, he's the president of the company. Anybody would be intimidated to help him out, but he's a genuinely very nice guy. So a lot of the things that I ended up doing was creating the AD accounts, creating extensions, and because I'm so good at learning software, I just ended up doing it as my main thing. At night, I would do all the hardwares. I would create all the AD accounts, get them set up with whatever distribution list they might need for whatever department they'll need. Do desk setups. A lot of people would walk in. I would have to help them out. So it was a lot of multitasking. And you do get these projects here and there that you might need to do, like, setting up something in a conference room and making it look nice, give the branding to it.
So talk to me a little bit for folks that know what Disney Plus is and streaming, and that's the service that you're mainly working with. How does your daily, just to give people sort of a frame of reference, how does your job on a daily basis affect the stream? Like, if I'm watching at home, what hand do you have to play in terms of me seeing something on the screen?
My hand is it's way far back.
Yeah, I understand. I understand that, but I mean, from an angle, right? So, I think it's really interesting, because even movies, right? It's really interesting as we get into all of the different pieces, right? You don't know what a grip is, right? The first time you're watching a movie, you're seeing something going on, and they got this, half an hour of credits roll after the film. You don't know what a grip is, but without the grips, without all the different people that are putting the sets together, doing the digital effects, all the different things, right? That movie doesn't look the same way. It doesn't get made, right? Mm-hmm. So It's just kind of cool, because you're a part of a big machine. So what part of it, so people understand what piece are you holding together, right?
Yeah. So we're holding the company together. So without us, I mean, people wouldn't be able to access the tools they need. They wouldn't be able to work together with, it might be like shared files. If, someone's unable to access the software, it can be very, very critical to the completion of the application. If you call Disney Plus, the customer service line, and a vendor is unable to help you, that's on us, because we have to help them out to make sure they have the right access to help you out. Just like we have to help the engineers, marketing, and everybody in the company to make sure they have the access to make the application itself.
Yeah, I don't think people understand. And I got some contacts in my pool around IT, but basically, and right now we actually see it too with I forget the name of, but it's in the news, the cable, the pipeline that's dealing with, having their systems hacked, basically, and so they got ransomware and all that kind of stuff. But, the IT department keeps the computers running and keeps a lot of that stuff at bay. But if you don't have that infrastructure, because everybody's like, whether you work for IBM, any kind of company where you're seriously, you're sending emails, even if you're at home, right? Your computer doesn't work. Where do you go? What's your resource? But within a company that's got so many different moving parts and the software, so you want to upload a movie to the Disney Plus stream so people can actually see a movie. If your computer isn't working, that provides.
That's an issue. That's an issue.
That's a challenge. Yeah. So that's amazing. So that's really cool that's what you're doing. And what's the goal for you, sir? You're here now with BAMTech and Disney Plus. What's the where do you see the future going for you?
For me, I would love to continue in the company and grow in there. In the branch that I'm in corporate services, there's a bunch of different things that I can do, like networking systems. There's InfoSec and things like that I can do. I would love to become a manager and grow in position, of course, as anybody would love to.
Yeah, and what does that look like? What is that something, in terms of, moving from the role that you currently have to moving up in the company, has that been outlined for you? Do you have a mentor? Or are there people that are working with you to do that?
So the beautiful thing about Disney is that they love to see their employees grow. They have programs where you can be mentored by people of these different positions. Like one time I showed an interest in data analytics, and I know one of the guys one of the managers for data analytics who lives in Australia. So we would talk and like I would learn about the position. They'll tell you what exactly you need to get there. And it's very easy. As long as your manager knows that you're going to look for another position within the company, they're absolutely game with it. They love that. They love to see their employees grow.
Yeah, I love it. And it's one of those things. I was talking to somebody that, had worked for some big corporations, working for, Toys R Us was one of them, and I was just talking to her this morning. But, with these big Fortune 500 companies, what's so often the case is the training that's available to you. So this is the advantage, right? You're working with an Amazon, a Disney, any, huge company. They depend on people, and so they provide a lot of resources. So, you could go work with a startup company, and that's going to be a really interesting experience. You're going to learn a lot. But working with a larger company does allow all these resources to develop you, train you, prepare you for the next role. And that's how you are able to ascend the ladder and be in these senior VP roles at one point or another. I love that piece of it, and great sort of piece for folks that are sort of looking to get into the career. Like, hey, this is a place to go. And then, of course, if you're looking for a job at Disney Plus, you got a plug. You got Hensly here who can help you out, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about, just in terms of your educational path. I know, the butterfly effect and all that, but are there any things that you were like, man, I wish I would have done this? Or are there any experiences, especially because I know we got other alumni that are watching this, what are things that you're kind of got your eye out that you're looking to get into? What are fun things that you would have done, or what are things that you would do if the opportunity presented itself?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I would love to continue, of course, is coding, because I do enjoy it. Lost my train of thought. Can you repeat it one more time?
So what are things that you would have done, and what are things that you would that you're looking to do, especially because I think, other alumni are going to see this over, the next year or two. And so hopefully they'll reach out to you. I know in the description below, actually I got to add it, but I'll go back and add it in, but I'll make sure that your LinkedIn is there and people can follow up with you and connect with you. But right now you can go to LinkedIn. If you're watching this, Hensly Taveras, right on LinkedIn. His name is spelled exactly the same way there. IT support specialist at Disney Streaming Services. You can find them. But, as people are watching this, there may be some other opportunities, whether somebody's looking for some mentorship or, maybe there's some opportunities out there that, are going to present themselves. So what's some things that you're kind of looking to, whether it's personal or or business wise? What are some things that you're looking to get into? I know you were mentioning that you do Twitch, get on Twitch and stream with the video games every now
Went to the blue one.
which we owe to credit the very nice setup you got going on
Yeah.
For this today. But what are some things that you might be also looking for?
Yeah, so I feel that's two questions, but the first one, the first one, in terms of what I could have done differently, one of the things that I would say is, first of all, enjoy your youth. Make sure you get the most out of college. Do whatever it takes. Don't be lazy and want to go play video games, even though it's fun playing video games at 4 a.m. with your friends. But there's so much things you can be doing, so much you're going to be learning. One thing I wish that I would have done differently is absorb a lot of the sciences more, because now I'm absolutely fascinated with like physics and chemistry and all that stuff, things that I never would have been interested in. But if you're interested in that, Smarter Every Day on YouTube is amazing to help spark that ignition. In terms of opportunities at Disney, especially if you're starting off new, there's always internships. Like right now we have an internship wave that they're doing. Don't be afraid to apply, even if you don't feel like you have enough experience. You never know what's going to happen. Let them say no to you. And if you don't get that position the first time, don't be afraid. Come back again.
That's a big deal. I think so many people, and I know you mentioned it in telling your story, but saying no for people, right? I'm just going to say, it's not going to happen, so I'm not even going to apply. Like let somebody else make the decision. Put it out there and let them make the decision to tell you no. Chances are, especially if you're consistent with that, you keep doing that, the answer is going to be a nice yes, and many times over. And then you have that, especially if you're going through a job process of applying to places or college process, the beautiful thing of multiple people saying yes, and now you get to play a little bit of things off of each other and even enhance your situation because you're confident, because you're wanted. And going back to that kind of experience of being in the one place and not feeling particularly loved, it's really interesting, especially as you gain skills, gain experience, right? That I don't know if you've heard this, but the father gives his son his car. He says, listen, take it over to the car dealership and then take it to the auto club, see what they're going to give you. And so the son brings the car to the dealership, and the dealership is like, we'll give you a couple $1,000, all right. And then he takes it over to the auto club. The auto club wants to pay him like $20,000, right? Because it's classic, right? And so it's that lesson of like, go where you're appreciated.
Yeah.
You aren't.
Make sure know your worth.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So knowing that, I think it's a big deal for people to know that literally I can go right here to this place and I can go right here to over this place, and it could be night and day. Right. It could literally be night and day. And so that encourages, I think, people to go and explore and not just settle, this is the first thing that came along and that's what I'll accept. Right. Go and try something new, try something different. I love that piece of it because I think I'm still learning that to this day at 42 years old. And so it's one of those things that, you're like, all right, yep, I know that. Good to hear it again. Let me put it into practice, right? Really cool stuff. So who are you looking to connect with? Who are some folks that you would love to? And I love that you put it out there, like for, people that are looking for an intern at Disney. Hopefully you'll get some people that reach out to you, especially on the younger side, that are looking to do this. But I imagine for folks that, just want to get some experience is a great opportunity. What are who are some folks that you would love to connect with to continue on with what you're doing?
Just my peers. Anybody who's interested in photography, I do have a photography Instagram. It's Streets of New York _BNW is for black and white.
All right, say that one more time so I can write it down.
Streets of New York or Streets of NY _BNW, black and white.
All right, I got to check that out. Let me see if I can type that in here, and I'll bring it up on the screen. Do you know who Gio is?
Yeah, Gio Bro.
Yeah.
He got me interested in Photoshop, actually.
Yeah. He's
good. He's good.
He's prolific. Yeah. All right. Streets of NY. What is it?
I remember he did a Photoshop.
Tell me the address for this, and then keep going.
Oh, sorry.
Streets of NY
_B as in boy, N as in Nancy, W as in West.
That's the Instagram account? No.
Yeah.
No, I see it. I see it. Well, I have the Instagram account, Hen Captures. Is that what I was looking?
That's another one. That's for my colored prints, but yeah.
So I see the black and white one. All right, let me share this one. Keep going with what you were talking about with Gio.
Yeah, so one of the things that Gio showed me in Randolph was he made a Photoshop picture of him playing with himself. So it's like cropped pictures of him in different positions in a room. Like it was the coolest thing I've seen. That's what sparked my interest.
That didn't sound right. I think I understood what you're saying. He had multiple images of himself there.
And Xbox with himself.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Very cool. Loving some of these. So try to get some close-ups here, some good shots. Very, very cool.
Thank you.
Got some talent there.
Thanks. I took a street photography course in college, and that was fun. I didn't really understand it when I was there, but growing up, I definitely do now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love seeing
capturing a moment is beautiful.
Very, very, very cool. All right, man. I hope people connect with you. I'm so glad you did this with me. It was really nice getting to know you because I don't think we knew each other very well from your time in Randolph. We were kind of like ships passing in the night. I think we saw each other, but not really got.
Yeah, you definitely did persuade me to apply to more colleges. So.
Okay, good.
You were there.
It's interesting because, I know I have longer conversations with some people and others, and I got into background, I got into family histories, and then some students is just like, we got a moment and we were talking, and it's an interesting thing being in high school and having so many different interactions, and you can feel at the end of the day like it was just a whirlwind with people passing in the hallway. It's a big school, very challenging. And it's been crazy. And I feel for all the students in Randolph this year because it's been just crazy just being online, virtually, people with cameras off. Like, it's just not the same experience. So hopefully in the fall, people will be back in the building. And then hopefully as we get into like Alumni Day and everything, we can have you back in the building. Thank you again for doing this. I'll let you have the final word and say goodbye to the current Randolph folks and alumni, and I'll see you on the flip.
Sounds good. Well, so everybody out there, make sure you work hard. Don't be afraid to make mistakes because only the strong know how to get back up. And if you haven't seen Hamilton on Disney Plus, that's a must watch because I see that like
absolutely.
I watch that every day.
And now they're coming out with the Heights, right? So representing the neighborhood.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Are they?
Yeah. So I don't know if it's going to be on Disney streaming, but I know that I think it's probably going to be on Disney streaming. I think that's probably the deal with Lin-Manuel Miranda. But yeah, that was actually my first exposure. I didn't even know who the hell Lin-Manuel Miranda was, but the Heights, I saw the play. And years later, I'm looking at Hamilton. I didn't even connect the fact that they were connected. And then later on, I got it. It was like, oh, yeah, I saw that play. The Heights.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people know him.
That's the neighborhood. Yeah. All right, Hensly, thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, anytime, Cameron. See ya.